right, so welcome to the Combined Ed Quality Office Hour. Today we will talk about the School Continuous Improvement Plan. We will also cover the steps of the process, the importance of baseline data, share the timeline with you, and answer any questions you may have. As part of the continuous improvement process, a comprehensive needs assessment is conducted so that schools can analyze multiple sources of data from four main data categories: demographic, student outcomes, school process, and perceptions data. From these data analyses, schools can identify assets and challenges, specific problems of practice, as well as underlying root causes. Our comprehensive needs assessment toolkit and website resources can support teams in this process. The results of your needs assessment will be documented in the data inventory template, which will support the development of your goals and strategies in your CIP. The initial portion of the CIP includes detailed instructions for completing the plan. These are being separated and included in a separate instructions and submissions document. It also includes assurances for completing a comprehensive needs assessment, including the data inventory, as well as attaining board approval and making the plan available to the school community. Here are some important reminders. Make sure to read the instructions and use the examples within to help guide you. This will ensure that you are not missing anything, as the CIP will be returned this year if edits are needed. Section 1 of the CIP must be completed by all schools and includes space to document the diverse stakeholders that are represented in the construction of the CIP. You must include the names and roles of represented stakeholders involved in the developing of your school CIP. Stakeholders should include parents, teachers, students, community members, and more.
Section 2 is completed by all schools and lists the prioritized goals, including academic and safe, healthy schools for all students and targeted subgroups if identified for TSI or ATSI. Outcome measures, evidence-based strategies, change ideas, and their resources or investments that will support their implementation, including those funded with 1003 school improvement grants. This section also contains a space to reference goal numbers so that where applicable, they can be integrated into the CFP grant applications. Pursuant to Act 139, all schools are required to identify proficiency levels for literacy, as well as specific goals and evidence-based strategies for improvement. Goals must be clear, measurable, and related to student learning outcomes, and specify a number of elements that we will be discussing in greater detail in the next slide. But as you probably already know, they are what is being improved, for whom, by when, and by how much. All schools should consider equity goals focused on reducing achievement gaps between historically marginalized students and their peers. For schools identified for targeted support and improvement, these goals must be explicit and in service of the student groups related to the identification status. Goals and evidence-based strategies must be related to the CNA data and to the causal analysis, and if applicable, must be related to the reasons for identification of schools eligible for comprehensive support, targeted or equity support, or both. The next slide. There are a few reminders of how to write CIP goals. Goals must address academic achievement and safe and healthy schools. They need to set clear, measurable student learning goals. This entails 4 basic criteria. That is, they must include what, for whom, by when, and by how much. What describes the specific skills, processes, and practices that are being improved. For whom identifies the intended population for whom the goal is set. By when specifies when you expect the outcome to be achieved. And by how much indicates the degree of improvement you expect will be made by that time. So in this case, in the example you see in the slide, you see that there is a due date by June 2024. That's the by when. 100% of students is for whom. The by how much is the achieving of proficiency, and in grade level reading fluency as measured by oral reading fluency is the what. In the next slide, you can see that goals and evidence-based strategies must be related to the root causes identified in the CNA, and if applicable, must be related to the reasons for identification of schools eligible for comprehensive support and/or targeted supports. The AOE website contains useful resources for understanding, selecting, and implementing evidence-based practices. We, as EQ team, are available to assist in the development of the CIP, either directly or by facilitating contact with subject matter experts. We're also formalizing in-depth support procedures to assist the schools identified for comprehensive and targeted support and improvement.
Great, and I'll take us through the final sections of the slide. So in section 2A of the CIP template that you see here, pursuant to Act 139, again, K through 3 schools only are required to identify proficiency levels for literacy, as well as identify those specific goals and evidence-based strategies for improvement. Section 3 must be completed by all schools identified for comprehensive and/or targeted support and improvement, also known as Equity 2 and 3. This section contains information about how schools are allocating resources, including any inequities that may exist. The section also includes space for documentation of goals, measures, change ideas that may be needed to make improvements in this area. As a reminder, you must upload a copy of your fishbone or 5-wise diagram. Goals must also address the needs of the student groups identified as in need of support and improvement. And the plan must include at least one evidence-based change idea or intervention. Finally, section 4 includes space for all schools to document specific data, baseline, progress monitoring, and year results for each goal referenced in the plan. For schools identified for comprehensive and targeted support, plans will be updated for mid-year progress monitoring and end-of-year results to ensure implementation efforts are driving positive change and results throughout the year. LEAs are responsible for ongoing monitoring of the school plans. All schools must monitor their progress towards their goals, and schools eligible for comprehensive, targeted, and additional targeted supports must update and submit mid-year progress no later than February 28th, 2026, and end-of-the-year results no later than June 30th, 2026, and will have regular monthly check-ins with their education quality coordinator to discuss implementation and progress. As a reminder, CIPs are for schools eligible for comprehensive CIPs for schools eligible for comprehensive and targeted supports will be monitored by the AOE twice annually. Expectations and timelines. So LEAs with CSI schools should submit their CIPs by June 30th, along with submitting their data inventory and CFP application. Substantial approval will then allow LEAs to begin obligating funds for activities, including the grant application, including the SI-funded activities that are within that grant application, starting on July 1st, even if the grant has not received full approval from the secretary at that time. All other LEAs, so those who are not eligible for the Title I School Improvement Funds, should submit their CFP application with their data inventory by June 30th to receive substantial approval starting July 1st. Their CIPs can be submitted anytime before September 30th. As a reminder, LEAs carry the risk during substantial approval, because if something does not ultimately get approved in the final application, the LEA will not be able to draw reimbursement from the grant funds for those activities. So please practice good grant management to mitigate this risk for your LEA. So that concludes today's overview of the CIP template. We're ready to take any questions. If you have any, please feel free to unmute yourself or place a question in the chat.
Josh, I just put a question in the chat, but I can say it orally too. Just wanted to find out if a fishbone or a 5 whys analysis is required for every goal in the CIP.
We go back to those. Oops, I'm hearing an echo now. You guys hear that echo?
Yes.
Oh, that is odd. Can someone else mind answering while I take care of this echo?
Okay, so I think I might answer. Tony, I might ask you to help me here. I'm not going to give an answer. Team, help me out.
No, I don't think you need one for all goals, Kosha. I think the fishbone and 5 whys really kind of digs into the data overall, like what are the issues you're seeing. So if you have one for each goal, I think that's great. But I think we're just looking at the overarching not the pieces, but overarching data themes that you found that kind of support each of those goals, right? So, but you don't necessarily need one for each goal. Yeah.
Okay, because I think I heard before that we needed one for each goal since we're identifying a problem of practice, right? So if you're identifying a problem of practice for the attendance goal or engagement goal versus a safe and healthy schools goal or academic, it would be different. So just wanted to clarify what the expectation was.
Okay. Thanks, Kosha. And we'll clarify here too as well.
Okay,
just to make sure, and then we'll follow up on that and let you know.
Thank you, Tony.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of feedback going on.
Now it's
All right,
done, I think.
There we go. Do we have any other questions? I see no questions in the chat. Give folks a minute to have some think time. Seeing any questions in the chat and no hands raised or anybody unmuting? I guess that concludes today's office hours. Thanks for attending, and we will reach out with a reminder of when the next office hour will be available. Oh, Jen, you have your hand raised.
Yes, hi, sorry. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Well, first of all, good morning. Sorry, I just hopped on a little late, running from another school. I had a couple questions that were kind of specific to the SIP, but that also tied in with comp schools. So I don't know, it sounds like you're ready to end the call. I'm happy to stay on after or ask my couple questions now.
Jen, I think you can go ahead and ask your questions now. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I didn't hear.
Nope, that's okay.
So my first question is looking at the CIP application under the assurances section. I believe it's the 6 box in. It says if your LEA is currently undergoing a formal resource allocation with the AOE, please ensure that LEA leadership attaches a copy of the improvement goals and strategies. My question is, we received our resource allocation review, kind of the synopsis of the meeting that we had. We received that yesterday afternoon. And in that document, it states that our team has until September 30th to upload and finalize our plan. And so I guess my question is more about timeline and time frame, because the guidance in that document doesn't necessarily line up with what the SIP plan is looking for. So I don't know if we upload the document we received yesterday, if that would suffice, or if I just write a note saying that we received the document on May 13th, and that we will submit our plan in September. So just looking for some guidance around that. Because I don't want that to hold up our schools.
Yep. No, Jen, I would say go ahead and upload what you received back, because you can always amend that and add that final plan in September, right? So I would say just go ahead and amend what you have when you upload your new SIP, and then in September you can just re-upload the updated copy of your RAR results. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And then my second question is so we have 12, 13 schools in North Country. Each one of them has a SIP plan.
Mm-hmm.
It's my understanding that we're only checking this box, the 6th box, for our 2 schools that have been identified as comprehensive supports. Is that correct?
Yes, for the RAR, yes. Yep.
Okay, so only those 2 schools, okay?
Yep. Yep.
And then my final question is the 2 schools that have been identified as schools in need of comprehensive supports. We're doing crosswalks, right, from the data inventory tool and their SIP plans before we submit. And one of our wonderings is the investments that we are anticipating to write for our comp schools. Do those also need to align with our SIP goals?
Yes, they do. So let me just make sure I got your question right, Jen. So what's in you're writing investments for those schools identified for comprehensive supports, right? And so what the SIP goals need to align to those investments? Yes, they do. Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, do we have any other questions? I see no more questions came in the chat. All right, that concludes today's office hours. Thank you all for attending, and we will reach out with a reminder for the office hours that are happening in June. Thank you.
Yeah.
Enjoy your day.
Thank you.